It's about that time of the week again where we check out another Mr. Ballen story. This guy tells them like no one else. I love this guy. The tagline is the Angola effect. Horrifying death traps in the cradle of evolution. Whoa! Does he find the like button there? Is he going to put the like button into the death traps? You never know with Mr. Ballen, do you? Anyway, we took it easy on him last time. Let's see what he does this time. Okay, Mr. Ballen. See what you do to that bloody like button.
Today's story is about a guy named John who just wanted to go surfing, and he would get a chance to do that. However, when he was finally out on the water, something super rare and super horrible happened to him that actually kicked off a series of more rare and terrible things that all happened to John.
What could it be?
I mean, this whole story is so outrageous that it just sounds totally made up. But I can promise you, it's not. But before we get into that story, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right place because that's all we do, and we upload once a week. So, if that's of interest to you, please offer to make the like button a friendship bracelet using those little beads with letters on them, but make sure you spell on their bracelet, "Nobody likes you," before you hand it over. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. Okay, let's get into today's story.
I like this. Mr. Ballen, he's taking it easy on the like button these days. Some of the earlier stuff, he was very, very obnoxious to the like button. Anyway, John's going to have a lucky day. Let's see why.
On an April morning in 1993, a surfer named John Doyle was sitting on a surfboard out in the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of West Africa, just scanning the water waiting for a wave.
No. See, sat in the open ocean off the coast of West Africa. Now, you know what's there, don't you? Great white sharks. And what they called? What's them? Box jellyfish, are they? Or Portuguese man o' war. They go down near where the African coast is. Right. Not a chance would you catch me in that water.
John was totally alone out here. There were no other surfers, nothing, and the only sign of human civilization anywhere was John's Land Rover, which was parked up on the sand on the beach. John was an American. He was from Colorado, and so his experience had always been, you know, lots of snow and mountains and trees, because that's Colorado. But now here, off the coast of Africa, it was like a totally different planet. And in fact, today, John was really feeling that because the sun was so hot that day. It was over 95 degrees Fahrenheit, and he could actually feel his back starting to burn as he sat there, you know, waiting for the next wave.
See, now, if the country's warm, if the beach is nice, if the water's blue, you know that's going to attract all of the animals in the sea that don't like you. You know what I mean? No, not a chance. I'd be parking my ass quite safely on the beach. Maybe paddle me in the little bit of the wave, that 2 inches of water at the shore. But no chance would I be in the middle of that ocean. Not a chance.
Feel his back starting to burn as he sat there, you know, waiting for the next wave. And so he told himself, actually, that he would just catch one more wave and then call it a day.
Should have called it a day before.
But as John continued to kind of scan out across the water, waiting for this wave, he noticed about 20 meters away was a shark fin swimming in a circle, like stereotypical, terrifying shark behavior. And so,
what did I say? What did I say? Off the coast of Africa, there's sharks.
Swimming in a circle, like stereotypical, terrifying shark behavior. And so John is horrified, and he wants to get out of the water immediately, but he's far enough away from shore that if he jumped into the water to swim to shore, you know, he's going to be in the water with the shark, thrashing around. He's just going to attract the shark over to him. And so John decides his only hope here to escape the shark is actually just to surf in. That way he'll stay out of the water, it's much faster, he'll get to shore, the shark can't follow him there, it'll be fine. And so, trying to stay calm, John continued to keep his eye on the shark that was still 20 meters away, and he also really looked closely for any swell coming towards him that might be big enough to allow him to surf to shore.
I tell you what, my feet would not be in the water. I would be sat on that board just in case. Because sharks, they attack from underneath. And the first thing it'll bite is your board, and then you've got a little bit of a chance to try and swim away while it's wrestling with that board. Oh my God, no. See, this is my worst fear. I would not go in the open ocean. Not off the coast of Africa. I know exactly what's in them waters.
Any swell coming towards him that might be big enough to allow him to surf to shore. And thankfully, after only a couple of minutes, John did see a swell coming towards him that seemed like it would be perfect for a final wave.
Right.
And so at this point, John is facing out to sea towards the swell, towards the shark that's still 20 meters away. And he turns himself around, so he's facing towards shore, and then he lays down on his stomach, and he begins to paddle towards shore. And as he's doing this, he's checking the swell to see when it's going to come up, when he can
checking the shark.
And eventually the swell is right underneath him, and as he's about to stand up on his board and actually surf into shore, he looks into the water that has not quite formed into a wave yet. And he sees the shark. It's literally underneath him. And so John has this sudden surge of adrenaline, and he just jumps up onto his board. He stands up, and for a second, he's stable. He's surfing, and he's riding this wave away from the shark. He's doing exactly what he hoped he could do. He can't believe it. And then, because he was panicked, because he was rushing, because it was a new board, who knows why, the nose of his board suddenly dipped just long enough to throw John off his board and into the water with the shark. And so immediately, as this wave is churning John over, he grabs onto his surfboard and just kind of holds on, and he's waiting for a moment when the wave stops so he can get out of the water, back on his board, and away from the shark.
Right.
But before the wave even stopped tumbling him over, John suddenly felt the searing pain in his calf. And so John, who's underwater, still clutching his board, he opens his eyes underwater, then he looks down, and through the cloudy water, he can see very clearly it is the shark, and it's a great white shark that is latched on to his leg.
This is what I said. What sharks are in the water off the African coast? All across the middle of, when you look at a world map, all across the middle of the map, when you look at the habitats for a great white shark, it is all across the middle, right through Africa, right up to the Caribbean and going the other way. You know what I mean? Australia and all that. Great white sharks are in that strip of water. You're like, no, not for me.
It is the shark, and it's a great white shark that is latched on to his leg. And so now, in a total panic, John began punching the nose of the shark. And when he did, the shark actually recoiled and released his leg long enough that John could pull it out. He actually managed to get up onto his board again. And just a second later, almost out of instinct, he was back standing on his board, just surfing along with a leg that was now bleeding profusely into the water.
Basically, it's creating a chum line for the shark. See, what you've got to, if a shark grabs you, the first thing you've got to do is either go for its eyes if you can get him, or punch it in the nose, because in the nose, it's a very, very sensitive area for a shark. They've got loads of these little jelly filled receptors, for sensing stuff, like blood in the water, like this, that, and the other. But if you smack them in those little areas, it's a shock for the shark, and it will let go of you. So I've watched a lot of shark documentaries. I know that, you know what I mean. But you go for the eyes, or you go for the under, not the top of the snout, the underneath where the white and the grey meet. All them little dots are there. The receptors. That's where you go. I feel like I'm like on a wildlife show, and I'm teaching you everything about sharks. Right, let's go.
And for a second, John was stable and appeared to be kind of moving towards shore again, but then the shark, it doubled around and swam at John from the side and literally smashed into him, knocking him off the board back into the water. But this time, John managed, when he fell this second time, to actually grab on to the board with both hands. So he has two hands on the board, he's getting tumbled in the water again, but he knows the shark is going to come for him. And so at the last second, he pulled the board close to his body and kind of turned himself like it was a shield. And the shark came flying towards him and bit him. But because he used that surfboard as a shield, the shark just bit the surfboard, ripped off half of it, and swam off with it and began mauling this half.
The shark would have been like that in the water. That's what would have happened with a shark. Like, what is this? It was bloody a minute ago. This just tastes like carbon fiber or fiberglass or whatever they're made out of.
Just bit the surfboard, ripped off half of it, and swam off with it and began mauling this half of the surfboard. And John, with the other half of the surfboard,
like a boogie
he
board,
somehow managed to stand up on it. Again, his leg is bleeding everywhere, and he rode this damaged half surfboard into shore successfully away from the shark. And so when John pulled himself up onto the sand, out of the water, he looked back and he saw the shark swimming off. And even though he's in excruciating pain from this attack, he was so relieved. He couldn't believe he actually just survived that. But John did not.
And the great white as well. I mean, they're not the most aggressive shark, but if they bite you with intention. Great whites bite you and then let you bleed out to die. That's how they do it with seals and stuff, because you don't want to get injured and etc. But if it had been a bull shark or a tiger shark, they're far more aggressive, and they would have been at you. You know what I mean? It'd have been like relentless.
Sharks swimming off, and even though he's in excruciating pain from this attack, he was so relieved. He couldn't believe he actually just survived that.
Yeah.
But John did not have time to think about, what good fortune this was in a way.
I'm bleeding.
Because he was an hour away from the nearest civilization. And between where he was now and that town, there was nothing. There weren't homes, there weren't buildings, there weren't offices, nothing. It was just totally wild lands until you got to that town. And so John knew he would need to get in his car and drive all the way to that town and then get the people of the town to go get medical help. So, I mean, he is hours away from getting the help he needs. And so he has no time to waste. And so,
well, basically, you've got to tie a garment of clothing like a tourniquet around your foot, around your calf, haven't you? And stem the bleeding as much as you can. You know what I mean? It's going to be... But then again, if it's a straight road, you can go as fast as you want, I suppose, if you're not going to knock anybody over because there's no civilization.
He crawls through the sand. His leg is killing him, but he's just so focused on getting up to his Land Rover, and he manages to get to his car. He opens the door, he climbs in the driver's seat, and then as soon as he's in there, he shuts and locks the doors, and then he grabs a white t-shirt that he had on the passenger seat, and he ripped it into strips. He used those strips like tourniquets, and he wrapped them around his leg, the leg that was bleeding from his calf, and he basically used this tourniquet to attempt to cut off blood flow to his entire right leg to stop the bleeding, to save his life. But the wound on his right leg was so bad and so deep that despite putting on multiple very tight tourniquets, it just wasn't doing very much. He was still losing blood at a pace that likely would kill him before he got to town. And so John was kind of like, well, nothing else I can do but attempt to go to town.
Yeah.
So he fired up his car, he reversed off the beach, and began making his way towards town. As John sped along the road, he began to feel very lightheaded. Between the pain in his leg and the extreme heat outside, he just felt very dehydrated and weak. And so he thought to himself, if I can't get a sip of water soon, I'm going to pass out right now, and then I'm done for.
Yeah.
And so as he's driving along, John began fumbling around his car, looking for any sort of liquid somewhere in the car. But ultimately, all he found was an empty water bottle. And all he saw in every direction was just this barren African savanna with no people and no water anywhere. And so John just kept on driving, hoping eventually he might find some water source. And luckily, after only a couple of minutes, when his eyelids were really starting to droop and he was having a hard time focusing, he noticed up ahead there was a copse of trees with a little creek that ran through it. And so immediately John...
I can imagine what's going to happen here now. He's going to go in there. He's going to go and get a drink of this fresh water. He's going to bend into the water to fill a drink, and a crocodile's going to come up and try and grab him, like in Crocodile Dundee when that woman tries to fill a water bottle and the croc comes. It's going to be crap luck if that happens.
There was a copse of trees with a little creek that ran through it. And so immediately John pulled over and he got out and he hobbled his way over to the water. He laid down on his stomach, so his face is basically right over the water. And then he just put his face in the water and began to drink. And as he did, he felt his heart rate start to slow down. He felt himself relax a little bit. And he started to think to himself like, hey, I found water, I'm doing okay. Maybe I will survive this. But right as John was starting to feel optimistic, he felt a new shooting pain on his right side. And so with a little bit of strength he had, he managed to turn his head and looked to see what was going on. And staring back at him was a lion who had just bit his side and was now growling and staring at John and beginning to move its jaw left and right to really sink its teeth into John.
I'll tell you what. I mean, I wasn't far wrong when I said a crocodile, but a lion's worse. One, it's a pack hunter. Two, you're not going to be able to outrun it because you can outrun a crocodile easy. And three, that's going to eat you alive. That's going to be horrible. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. And it's not like it can run with his gammy leg, is it?
And beginning to move its jaw left and right to really sink its teeth into John.
I'd have been in it, thumbs in eyes. I would be thumbing that in the eyes. Get off me, get off me. I tell you what, the best way to get rid of a cat is show it a cucumber. I wonder if it works with lions. Oh shit. Be gone! Okay, let's see how John escapes the lion.
Now, this is unbelievably painful for John.
Yeah.
He's already dealing with an unbelievable pain in his leg from the shark attack. And so John's experiencing pain that very few people ever get to experience. And it caused this unbelievable surge of adrenaline. You know, one that you would likely get basically
Fight
right
or
before
flight.
you die. That was the level of adrenaline he was getting. And with this adrenaline rush, he grabbed a stick and he began hitting this lion who's locked onto his ribs. And he managed to beat the lion off of him. And the lion, you know, it only backed up maybe a few feet.
That's all they do.
Totally fixated on John.
That's what they do, though, because that's like I say, I've seen a lot of wildlife documentaries, and they stand there and they evaluate what's going on. And you've got to keep your eyes on their eyes. Do you know what I mean? If you turn and run, that's having you. So you've got to back up slowly, keeping your eye. You've got to win the staring out competition. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You know what I mean? But that lion's just felt like it's been hit with something, like, and it's probably hurt the lion a little bit. So he's probably thinking, well, how do we attack this now? This other animal sort of thing, right?
Lion,
okay.
you know, it only backed up maybe a few feet, and it's still totally fixated on John, and it's growling and edging towards him. But John, you know, all he could do was just attempt to get to his Land Rover.
Yeah.
And so as soon as the lion had let go of him, he just stood up and kind of pathetically began hobbling as fast as he could towards his Land Rover. And he literally just walked past this lion who's still growling at him, kind of trying to size him up.
Yeah.
And he just kept on walking towards his car, and he was almost there when he noticed the sound of the lion growling behind him, which had been constant to this point, had suddenly intensified. To the point where John couldn't even help himself.
All of them are there.
He had to turn around and see what was going on. And when he turned around, he saw now there was not just one lion, but an entire pride of lions. There was at least 4 lions that now had all formed a semicircle and were staring at John and moving towards him to eat him. But John really couldn't do anything about this. All he could do was just hopefully get to his Land Rover in time. And so John just turned back around, so his back is to the pride of lions a few feet away from him, and he just continues hobbling towards his car. And as he walked, the lions began swiping at him and cutting his legs open and his arms open. I mean, they're like razor blades just being taken to the backside of him. But they didn't launch a full-bore attack on him. It was like they were just kind of testing him. And then right when the lions were basically about to actually pull John to the ground and eat him was when John got to the door, opened it up, jumped inside, shut it, and locked it.
Right, okay. If I was John now, and I'd got to my Land Rover, right, I would put the shoe on the other foot, and I'd go and run all them lions over. I really would, for trying to kill me. I'm like, see how you like it.
Was when John got to the door, opened it up, jumped inside, shut it, and locked it. However, when John went to grab his keys and start the car, he realized he didn't have the keys. And when he turned and looked outside, he saw the pride of lions and his car keys on the ground. He was doomed. He knew there was no way he could get those keys without getting killed in the process.
Oh my God. I mean, this is a comedy of errors. This is like a comedy sketch in a film. But like, this is serious real life. Not only has he been swiped at by lions, and if he gets out of his Land Rover, he's dead. If he doesn't get the keys, he's going to bleed out from the shark bite. What? Oh my, how much bad luck can you have?
Knew there was no way he could get those keys without getting killed in the process. And so John basically just resigned himself to die in his car here. Like he knew, I'm going to die in the next few hours. There's nothing I can do. And so he just kind of sat there and waited. And 30 minutes later, John heard a very loud, almost explosion sound coming from somewhere outside of the vehicle. And then he heard it a few more times, and before long, the lions were so startled by it that they ran away. And then he hears what sounds like a series of shutter flashes, like camera flashes. And, he's looking around. He can't quite figure out what's even going on because, again, he has all these injuries. He's lost so much blood. And then eventually, John just kind of passes out, having no idea what had just happened. It would turn out there was actually a safari that was happening in the area where John was at the same time. And the safari guide, as they drove past this area, happened to spot John inside of his Land Rover surrounded by lions. And so as all the people in the tour began furiously taking photos of this crazy scene in front of them, the tour guide began firing his rifle into the sky to scare the lions off. And so those were the noises that John was hearing before he passed out. And then after he passed out, the tour guide and all the people on the tour pulled John out of his Land Rover, because now the lions are gone, and they would take him to a hospital where doctors and nurses would have to give him 250 stitches to stitch up all of his various shark and lion wounds. John would make a full recovery, and he would hang up on his wall in his office the broken half of that surfboard that he did successfully manage to ride in to escape the shark. He says the surfboard reminds him how lucky he was.
Damn straight.
As promised.
Oh, John, you was a lucky boy. Who else could survive a shark, a great white shark, and then a pride of lions? Who else could survive that? Only someone called John. I mean, if that safari hadn't have been there, though, and can you imagine what went through his mind? I've got in the truck. Right, where's my keys? And then he looks out, and they're there, right where the creek is, where the lions are. You'd be like, oh my fucking God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? You'd have to try not wire the car, wouldn't you? Pull wires out. Which one is it? Do you know what I mean? Trying to start it. Oh, man, what a great story. I mean, is it true? I don't know. Some people tell me that some of Mr. Ballen's stories aren't true, but even if they are or they aren't, they make for good entertainment. So, I really enjoyed it. I'm gonna have to Google see if that story was true. Anyway, what did you guys think of this reaction? Let me know in the comments. If you want to check out any more from Mr. Ballen, there'll be a playlist right up there. Don't forget to subscribe, and I shall see you all in the next video.